In this video, we're going to focus on solving two-step equations. So let's start with the basics. We're going to cover equations with fractions, parentheses, variables on both sides, and even decimals. But let's start with the basic two-step equations. So how would you solve this equation? Let's say that 3x plus 5 is equal to 17. What's the first thing that we need to do in this problem? In order to solve this equation, we need to isolate the x variable. So the first thing we need to move is the 5. We want to get x by itself on the left side, so we need to get rid of the 5. Since the 5 is added to 3x, let's perform the opposite operation. Let's subtract both sides by 5. 5 and negative 5, those two will cancel. So what we have left over on the left side of the equal sign is 3x. 17 minus 5 is 12. Now all we need to do is separate the 3 from the x. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we need to divide both sides by 3. So x is 12 divided by 3, which is 4. And this is the answer. Here's another example that you could try. 4x plus 3 is equal to 19. So based on the last example, take a moment and work on this problem. Feel free to pause the video. Now just like before, we're going to start with subtraction. Let's subtract both sides by 3. Just to get rid of the 3 on the left side. 3 and negative 3, they add up to 0. So we just have 4x on the left side, and on the right side, it's going to be 19 minus 3, which is 16. Next, to separate the 4 from the x, we need to divide both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1x and x, you could just write it as x. On the right side, it's 16 divided by 4, which is 4. And so that's the answer for this problem. X is equal to 4. Let's try a similar example, but slightly different. So let's say that 17 minus 5x is equal to 2. If that's the case, what is the value of x? So what do you think we need to do in this problem? Well, we need to get rid of the 17 first. On the left, we have positive 17. So we need to begin by subtracting both sides by 17. So these two will add to 0. And then we could bring down the negative 5x. Positive 2 minus 17, that's equal to negative 15. Next, let's divide both sides by negative 5. Negative 5 divided by itself is 1, leaving behind 1x. Negative 15 divided by negative 5 is positive 3. Whenever you divide by two negative numbers, you're going to get a positive result. And so that is the answer. X is equal to 3. Now let's move on to our next example. Consider this equation. 9 is equal to 3 plus x divided by 4. So we have a fraction. What do you think we need to do in this problem? Well, in this problem, we could start by subtracting both sides by 3, just as we've been doing. 9 minus 3 is 6. Now let's bring down the fraction. So 6 is equal to x divided by 4. The opposite of division is multiplication. So since x is divided by 4, to get rid of that, let's multiply both sides by 4. On the right side, the 4's will cancel, leaving behind an x variable. On the left, we have 4 times 6, which is 24. And so that is the answer. Now, if you want to check your work, you can take this answer and plug it into the original equation. So 9 is equal to 3 plus, let's replace x with 24. 24 divided by 4 is 6. And 3 plus 6 is 9. So 9 equals 9. The equation is balanced, which means that this here is indeed the right answer. X is indeed 24. Now let's move on to our next problem. Go ahead and take a minute and try this example. So 8 plus x divided by 3 is equal to 12. So pause the video and write this equation down. Go ahead and solve it. So I'm going to start off by subtracting both sides by 8. 12 minus 8 is 4. Now, in the next step, I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. So on the left, the 3's will cancel. On the right, we have 4 times 3, which is 12. And so that's going to be the answer for this problem. X is equal to 12. Here's another one that you could try. So in this example, the x variable is on the right side. So go ahead and try it. So this problem is very similar to the first two problems that we covered, even though the x variable is on the other side. The same rules apply. Let's begin by subtracting both sides by 2. So 14 minus 2, that's 12. And on the right side, these will cancel just as before. And as you can see, solving these equations, they're not that difficult. Now, we need to divide both sides by 3. And so x is going to be 12 divided by 3, so x is 4 in this example. Now, sometimes you may have multiple x variables, like in this problem. 3x plus 8 plus 5x. Let's say this is all equal to 32. Now, what should we do in this example? Now, this problem might require more than 2 steps, so it might be a multi-step problem, which I'll have more later in this video. But what do you think we need to do in this problem? If you see two x variables on the same side, the first thing you should do is combine like terms. So we should add 3x and 5x, which is 8x. Now we have a problem that's similar to the ones that we dealt with in the beginning. So let's go ahead and subtract both sides by 8. 8 minus 8 is 0. We can bring down the 8x. And on the left side, we have 32 minus 8, which is 24. And now let's divide both sides by 8. So 8x divided by 8 is simply x. 24 divided by 8 is 3. And therefore, this is the answer. X is equal to 3. And now it's your turn. Go ahead and work on this problem. Let's say that 7x plus 2 minus 3x is equal to 26. So pause the video and try that. So let's begin by combining like terms. Let's combine 7x and negative 3x. 7 minus 3 is positive 4. So we have positive 4x plus 2, which is equal to 26. Next, let's subtract both sides by 2. 26 minus 2, that's going to be 24. And let's bring down the 4x. Now we need to separate 4 from x, so let's divide both sides by 4. 4x divided by 4 is x, and 24 divided by 4 is 6. And so that's the answer. X is equal to 6. Now sometimes you may have a variable found on both sides of the equation. So what do you think we need to do in this problem? In this problem, what you want to do is you want to move all the x variables to one side of the equation and all the numbers to the other side. So let's move the 5x from the left to the right side. So we can accomplish that by subtracting both sides by 5. Now simultaneously, we can add 8 to both sides. We can move all the constant terms, all the numbers without x, to the left side. The 8's will cancel and the 5x will cancel. So on the left, we just have a number. 4 plus 8 is 12. On the right side, we have a variable. 8x minus 5x is 3x. So now all we need to do is divide by 3 at this point. And so x is equal to 4. And that's it. So that's how you can solve that equation. Here's a similar example. 13 minus 2x is equal to 4x. So now it's your turn. Go ahead and work on that problem. So now what I'm going to do is add 2x to both sides. And at the same time, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Doing it this way will allow me to get rid of all the x variables on the left and all the constant terms on the right. So on the left, I just have 13 plus 5, which is 18. And on the right, 4x plus 2x, which is 6x. So now all I need to do is divide both sides by 6. And so x is going to be 18 divided by 6, which is 3. Sometimes you may have parentheses in the equation, like this one. Let's say that 3 times 2x minus 4 plus 1 is equal to 7. So what do you think we need to do in order to solve this particular equation? What ideas do you have? Well, what we need to use is the distributive property. We need to distribute 3 to 2x minus 4. So first, let's multiply 3 times 2x. That's going to be 6x. Next, let's multiply 3 by negative 4, and that's negative 12. And let's rewrite everything else. Now our next step is to combine like terms. Negative 12 and 1 are like terms on the same side. So negative 12 plus 1, we can exchange that for negative 11, since they're equivalent to each other. Now all we need to do at this point is first add 11 to both sides. And then we could divide. Right now we have 6x, which is equal to 7 plus 11, which is 18. And then we could divide by 6. 18 divided by 6 is 3. And so that's our answer. X is equal to 3. Here's another problem that's, well, let's try a similar problem first. Go ahead and try this one. So let's begin with the distributive property. Let's multiply 5 by 3x, just like we did before. And so that's going to be 15x. Next, we have 5 times 4, which we know to be 20. And then let's rewrite the other stuff. Now let's combine like terms. We can add 20 and 2, which we know it's going to be 22. So we have 15x plus 22, which is equal to 37. Now our next step is to subtract both sides by 22. 37 minus 22, that's 15. So now all we need to do is divide both sides by 15. 15 divided by 15 is 1. And so that's going to be our answer. X is equal to 1. Now sometimes you may have parentheses on both sides of the equation. So let's try an example that illustrates that. So let's say we have 2 plus 4 times 3x plus 2. And let's say that's equal to 3 minus 4 times, well, let's change that. Let's say it's 2 times 5x plus 1 plus 14. So using what you know, go ahead and solve this particular equation. Find the value of x. So we need to use distributive property. First, let's multiply 4 by 3x and then by 2. 4 times 3x is 12x. And 4 times positive 2, that's equal to 8. On the right side, we need to multiply 2 by 5x, which is 10x. And then 2 times 1, which is 2. Now let's combine like terms. On the left side, we can combine 2 and 8. On the right side, 2 and 14. Now 2 plus 8 adds up to 10. And 2 plus 14 is 16. So now let's isolate the x variables. Let's subtract both sides by 10x. So doing this will give us an x variable only on the left side. And let's subtract both sides by 10 so that we're going to have a constant number on the right side. 12 12x minus 10x is 2x. 16 minus 10 is 6. Now all we need to do is divide by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And so x is equal to 3. And that's the answer. Here's a similar problem that you could try. Let's say that 5 minus 2 times 3x plus 4 is equal to 3 minus 4 times 2x plus 1. So based on the last problem, go ahead and try these problems. So let's start with the distributive property. Let's multiply negative 2 by 3x. That's going to be negative 6x. And then let's multiply negative 2 by 4, which is negative 8. On the right side, let's start with negative 4 times 2x. That's negative 8x. And then negative 4 times 1, which is negative 4. Now let's combine like terms. So we can combine those two on the left and 3 and negative 4 on the right. 5 minus 8, that's going to be negative 3. And 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Now let's add 8x to both sides. This will give us an x variable on the left side, and it's going to be positive. And let's add 3 to both sides, so we can get a constant term on the right side. Negative 6x plus 8x is 2x. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2. So if we divide both sides by 2, we can see that x is going to be 1. And that's it for that problem. Now sometimes you may have multiple fractions. We covered an example where we only had one fraction in the equation. But here's an example with two fractions. Now there's different ways in which you could solve it. You could try to add 1 to both sides first to simplify the equation, or you could just, from the beginning, eliminate all fractions, which sometimes I like to do. Notice that we have a denominator of 3 and 2. What is a common multiple of 2 and 3? A common multiple of 2 and 3 is 6. So if we multiply everything by 6, we can get rid of all fractions. So let's multiply 6 by 2x divided by 3. 6 times 2x is 12x. 12x divided by 3, well, that's going to be 4x. So 2/3 of 6 is 4. Next, let's multiply 6 by 4. 6 times 4 is 24. And then let's multiply 6 by 3x divided by 2. 6 times 3x is 18x. Divided by 2, that's a 9x. And then 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. And now this looks similar to equations that we've solved before. So let's begin by subtracting both sides by 4x, and simultaneously let's add 6 to both sides. (24 plus 6 is 30. 9x minus 4x is 5x. Now all we need to do is divide both sides by 5. 30 divided by 5 is 6, so x is equal to 6, and that's the answer for that problem. Here's a similar problem, but this time there's going to be 3 fractions in the equation. So go ahead and try this problem. Now let's find the least common multiple of 4 and 5. A quick way to find just a common multiple of 4 and 5 is to multiply the two numbers. 4 times 5 is 20. So if we multiply every fraction by 20, we can completely eliminate the entire equation of all fractions. So let's do that. Let's multiply 20 by 3x divided by 4. Now 20 times 3x is 60x. 60x divided by 4 is 15x. Instead of multiplying first and then dividing, you could divide first and then multiply. If we did 20 divided by 4, that's 5. 5 times 3x will give us the same answer of 15x. Now what about 2/5 of 20? Well, if we take 20 divided by 5, that will give us 4, and then 4 times 2 is 8. So 2/5 of 20 is 8. Now if we multiply 83 over 20 by 20, the 20s will cancel, giving us 83. And now let's solve. Let's subtract both sides by 8. 83 minus 8 is 75. And now all we need to do is divide both sides by 15. 75 divided by 15 is 5. And so that's the answer. Now sometimes you may have to deal with decimals. Let's say we have 0.2x plus 0.3, which is equal to 1.5. Now you can go ahead and solve it, or you can eliminate all decimals. Now every decimal in this equation is rounded to the 10th place. So to get rid of all decimals, all we need to do is multiply everything by 10. 0.2x times 10 is 2x. 0.3 times 10 is 3. 1.5 times 10 is 15. And now we could solve it like any other problem. So let's subtract both sides by 3. 15 minus 3 is 12. And then if we divide by 2, we can see that x is equal to 6. Here's the last example in this video. So as you can see, all the numbers are rounded to the hundredths place. So what do you think we need to do in this problem? Let's multiply everything by 100. So basically, you just need to move the decimal 2 units to the right. 100 times 0.28x is 28x. 0.14 times 100 is 14. 0.13x times 100 is 13x. And 0.74 times 100 is 74. And now we just got to solve. Let's subtract both sides by 13x and also by 14. So 28 minus 13 is 15. 74 minus 14 is 60. 60 divided by 15, that's equal to 4. And that's the answer for this problem. Now I want to show you one of my algebra courses that might be useful to you if you ever need it. So go to udemy.com. Now in the search box, just type in algebra and it should come up. So it's the one with the image with the black background. So if you select that option, and if you decide to go to course content, you can see what's in this particular course. So the first section, basic arithmetic, for those of you who want to focus on addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And it has a video quiz at the end. It's a multiple choice video quiz. You can pause it, work on the problems, and see the solutions. It covers long division, multiplying two large numbers, and things like that. The next tutorial is on fractions. Adding, subtracting fractions, multiplying, dividing fractions, converting fractions into decimals, and so forth. So you can also take a look at that. Next, solve linear equations, which we covered, and just more examples if you need more help with that. The next topic, order of operations, which is also useful. Graphing linear equations. You need to know how to calculate the slope. You need to be familiar with the slope-intercept form, standard form, and just how to tell if lines are parallel, perpendicular, and so forth. And there's a quiz that goes with that as well. The next topic is on inequalities and absolute value expressions, which are also seen in a typical algebra course. And then we have polynomials, and that's a long section. And then factoring, that's another topic you need to master. And then system of equations. You can solve it by elimination, substitution. There's also word problems as well. Sometimes you got to solve equations with 3 variables, x, y, and z. So that could be helpful. Next, quadratic equations, how to use the quadratic formula, how to graph them, how to convert between standard and vertex form. And then you have rational expressions and radical expressions, solving radical equations, simplifying it, things like that. And every section has a quiz, so you can always review what you've learned if you have a test the next day. So here we have complex imaginary numbers. You need to know how to simplify those. Exponential, functions, logs. I have a lot of videos on logs. And then this is just functions in general. Vertical line tests, horizontal line tests, how to tell if a function is even or odd. And then conic sections, graphing circles, hyperbolas, ellipses, parabolas, and things like that. There's 2 video quizzes because it's actually a long section. And finally, arithmetic and geometric sequences and series. So that's my algebra course if you want to take a look at it, and let me know what you think.